Hi students, this is one of my very favorite topics, that personal SWOT analysis. So right now I'm putting my hat as the career advisor, also as a certified workforce development professional. So for many years I've consulted and advised students and professionals on how to job search and how to set goals, and basically one of the things that I've always, from the beginning, have worked with various professionals and students is the creation of a personal SWOT analysis. So the SWOT is just an acronym for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. However, for this exercise, I'm going to replace the threat for barriers, because in career, when it comes to education and career goals, we are talking about barriers, and they're known like that in the workforce, right? And I'll explain to you what I mean. So I would like for you to do your personal SWOT analysis. It is going to help you as you work on your resume and career goals. And businesses, this is something that businesses spend a lot of money hiring consultants, or maybe they have an in-house department that can also do their SWOT analysis on a frequently regular basis. Now, also entrepreneurs aspiring entrepreneurs should do a personal SWOT analysis. That is part of a business plan, right? Because you need to know what type of services, what strengths do you have in the business, what kind of competition. So the competition refers to threat in a business. But here personally, we're going to, and I replaced it as a barrier. So I would like for you to use this as an opportunity to do some self-reflection. No matter what level you are right now in your educational goals, or where you are in your career, if you're a midlife career professional, you're just started in college, I want you to take the time to do this. Don't rush. Take a few weeks to do this. And take a deep dive. That's what I'm really encouraging you to do. Take a deep dive. This is what I've done with the students when I was an employment counselor at a community college, and also when I used to work at the county, and with some professional colleagues. So take a deep dive and look into each area. So for example, the strengths. Ask yourself, what do you do well? What unique skills do you bring to the table, right? Like what are your skill sets? What are you good at? For example, do you speak a few languages? Are you bilingual? What degrees do you have? What certificates do you have? Because right now, the stackable certificates is something that is very competitive, and people are able to gain various certificates without getting a degree, and that's fine. So just take a deep dive and say, and also how to understand your strengths. And the reason I ask this question is because what I've seen throughout the last 15 years that I've been doing this is that students are quick to make a huge list of their weaknesses, this area right here. But when it comes to strengths, they cannot work on a list. So that's why it's so important for you to take a deep dive and reflect. And I do not want you to be humble. I want you to brag about your skills and your set. Even if you're young and you just started college, do you go to any organizations? Do you have communication skills? Do you go to your local I don't know, maybe church? Do you do something in church? So talk about all your skills. What do you bring to the table, right? And this has to also do with your personality. Are you patient? Are you a good listener? A good communicator? So think about everything. Look at yourself in the big picture. And then, if you need to, I didn't want to do a PDF because sometimes that has gotten complicated. Not everyone has a Adobe Acrobat Reader to open the PDF, so I've done a Word document. But here, if you need more, I want you to come up with a big list of strengths, because I know all of you have it. So what does that mean? What does that mean when my students or people that I work with cannot come up with a long list of strengths, but can come up with a long list of weaknesses? So what that means is that there's low self-esteem. So let's look at why you're not looking at your strengths, and maybe you need to ask someone, what do you see my strengths? Because, sometimes what we think we do naturally, we don't think of it as a strength. And I'll bring an example. Back in the day when, there was a bookstore called Borders, right? And I went to get a book because one of my friends had just published a book, her first book. And she's the top Latina in the music industry, Leila Cobo. So right now she's with amazing. She's interviewed many top artists in Billboard. So she's one of the top Latinas. But many, many days ago, we met. We both were newspaper reporters. I was working for La Opinion, and then she moved from the LA Times. She was covering music at the time, and she moved to work in City Hall in LA. So that's where we met. And then we kept in contact, and she moved to Miami. She started working at Billboard. She went up in the ranks in her industry, but she always wanted to write a book. And I remember telling her, just go for it. Just do it. Something very natural, like I would do for a friend. However, it was something in, I don't know, perhaps how I said it, that it triggered something in her, and she actually went ahead and wrote her book, right? So I was really, really happy for my friend's experience. But she, in her acknowledgement in her book, she mentioned me, and I was blown away, because when I went to buy this book, I cried at Borders even before I went and pay for the book, because sometimes we don't realize what our words can be so powerful. And she said, thank you to Lillian de la Torres, who so wholeheartedly inspired me. And, to me, that was like, wow, because so I just want you to think of situations that you perhaps might not think that you are doing something because it's so natural to you. So take a deep dive. So in my case, I like to motivate others. I like to encourage others, right? And it just comes naturally. But they, and then I got in contact with her, and she says, yeah, you were just telling me there's no more excuses. so I've always liked this field of career advising. So just take a deep dive and see what your strengths are. Do not start by your weaknesses. Start in this order. There's a reason why you start in this order. So do your strengths first. I put here bilingual as an example. But if you have a big list, you can just go here in File. You could just go here in the Add Text and Insert. And then you would add a text box. And then once you do the text box or draw a text box, you could just put it in here. And then you could have two text boxes so that you could add additional. I just want you to have a huge long list. You're going to move on to the weaknesses, and here you're going to write what is it that you can improve. Okay, so don't give me a huge list, but do be very honest with yourself. What is it that you can improve? Is it a habit? And by that I mean, are you hooked on social media and perhaps can use that time wisely, especially because, like I said, it's a self-reflection. Are you on your phone? Is it an addiction? And that is an addiction, actually. It's called nomophobia. So, what do others see in you as the weaknesses? Again, because sometimes we do not see them, but others might see them. So just, it's an honest conversation with yourself. And then here you're going to write the opportunities, right? So what is it that is available to you, no matter what kind of work experience, because I know that some of you have mentioned that you're looking for a job. So what is available to you with your current skill set, right? How can you make the best of trends and technology that you can take advantage of, right? Networking and contacts, like who do you know? How can they help you land a job, or how can they perhaps help you? Do you need mentors, right? That you can they can help you move up in your employment or provide a reference. And most importantly, how do you turn a strength into an opportunity, or maybe a barrier into an opportunity? And I'll mention what I mean by barrier. Here is a great example is for a lot of those of you coming back to school after many years. This is an opportunity because you're older and you're wiser, right? You have a different set skill that you're bringing with you, but at the same time, there's challenges because of technology, depending on technology changes rapidly. So maybe there's different things, especially with online classes, right? And here in the thread section, in business terminology, the acronym, the last for the SWOT analysis is a thread, but in the workforce development career advising world that I absolutely love is called a barrier. So analyze what is holding you back. What barriers do you have right now? Not last year. What barriers do you have right now? Do you have a limited work experience? Do you have transportation barriers? And I want to mention this because this is very, very, very close to my heart. I've advised some of the students along the years in some very tough situations. Are you perhaps in a toxic environment? Are you in a domestic abuse situation, because that creates a barrier, and you need to eliminate those barriers in order for you to be able to move forward, right? Perhaps some illnesses, so how can we turn this into opportunities? And make sure that, again, it's a deep dive. This is just your own personal reflection. But why is it important for us to do this, especially if you're going to be working on your resume? You need to know what your strengths are, because that's a common question in interviews, right? You need to know how you can turn a barrier into an opportunity, because you need to be able to identify when those things come up, or maybe when you need networking or contacts to help you move up, or you're reinventing yourself, right? So you need to know, many of us have reinvented ourselves, myself included. I went from being a journalist to then being a public relation expert, and then publishing my own magazines, Boxing and Wedding, and then being a business consultant in businesses. Then I absolutely fell in love with career advising and did that for a few years. But I always wanted to teach. So now I'm reinventing myself. In the last 7 years, I've dedicated myself to teaching and becoming better at what I do. So I teach college, I teach high school, and I teach adult education, entrepreneurship, and then I also teach at Santa Ana College. But it's how I reinvented myself and what I can do to make myself better, right? To improve my teaching experience so that my students make the most of it. So also look at yourself and see, well, for example, I know that someone recently approached me and said, hey, I don't want to, because I work at a high school, I don't want to do a teaching credential. I just finished my degree. I'm really I have burnout right now, but there's a lot of opportunities. There's a shortage because we live in a rural community, but actually in every district in California, there's a shortage of teachers, but specifically here in our rural community. So he said, what do you think I could do? Because I don't want to do this teaching credential. And his degree is in computer science. So we were talking about, some career advising, and I mentioned to him, well, and this was just recently, I said, well, what have you done when you were doing, because he just graduated from San Jose State, when you were doing your degree, were you consulting for someone? He said, oh yeah, I took a lot of freelance jobs. I done computer science for clients. I set up this, tech this, tech that, IT support. My God, he just went on. And I said, well, in that case, you could teach easily with a career technical education credential, which does not require you to do more years of studying, because this credential is based on work experience. So he's going to turn that, because his barrier was I can't do another teaching credential. It's just going to be too much, financial investment. I just finished my degree and then having to go back to school. So now he's considering doing a career technical education teaching credential so he could teach at the high school level computer science classes. So just to give you an idea, sometimes our opportunities are closer than what we think, and we just need to redirect ourselves. So the purpose of this is for you to look at the big picture and deep dive in, and then do not be humble, brag about your strengths, and also be very honest about your weaknesses, but think about how you could change them into an opportunity or into a strength, in how you can eliminate barriers, because barriers need to be eliminated if we want to continue on our path to success. So that's why it's important. We're just not going to make a list, right? We're going to have actionable steps. So that's the whole purpose of this, that you see this and say, okay, well, you know what, that opportunity, if I need to do step 1, 2, or 3, I could do that. I could get a certificate. For example, I teach in the interpreting program, right? And I have some students working on becoming certified court interpreters, and they know that they need to improve their legal terminology. So then they know that there's an opportunity for me to do this, and now you know what action steps, right? And you probably already heard so much about SMART goals, but it's actionable and intentionable. So all of this is going to give you a big picture into what you need to work on for the remaining short-term and long-term goals, right? And this is also going to help you create your resume. So thank you so much. I hope you really enjoy taking this deep dive into your personal SWOT analysis.